It was one of those cold November mornings, the kind that makes the air sting your skin and the world feel unusually still. I remember standing by the window, a cup of coffee in my hands, watching frost gather on the edges of the glass. Something deep inside me knew that my life was about to change forever, though I couldn't yet explain why. My name is Rebecca Hayes. I grew up in a small, quiet town in Ohio where everyone knew everyone else. My dreams had always been simple, the kind of dreams most small-town girls have. I wanted love, a family, laughter filling the walls of a cozy home, and a future that felt safe and certain. And for a while, I thought I had exactly that. I married Daniel when I was in my 20s. He was my first love, my best friend. Together we built our life from scratch. We worked hard, saved every penny, and believed that our love could get us through anything. We had a beautiful little boy, Ethan, who was 8 years old at the time. To anyone looking from the outside, we were the picture of happiness, the kind of family you see in Christmas cards. But behind closed doors, things weren't as perfect as they appeared. Daniel and I had been together for years, and at first everything felt effortless. He was my rock, my safe place. But as time went on, something began to change. I couldn't point out exactly when it started. Maybe it was the late nights at work, or the way he stopped asking how my day went. Maybe it was me convincing myself that we were just going through a phase. At first, I ignored the signs. The distance, the quiet dinners, the way his eyes no longer lingered when I spoke. I told myself it was stress, that every marriage went through rough patches. But deep down, my heart knew something was slipping away. Then one evening, as I was putting Ethan to bed, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a friend, someone I trusted. She said she had seen Daniel in town. Holding hands with another woman, I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely breathe. I wanted to believe she was wrong, that it was just a misunderstanding. Daniel wasn't perfect, but he wasn't reckless either. Still, that night I couldn't sleep. Every sound, every memory, every tiny doubt replayed in my head like a broken record. The next morning, I confronted him. His reaction was calm, too calm. He looked me in the eyes and said people were trying to stir up drama, that it wasn't true. And for a brief moment, I wanted so badly to believe him. But something in his tone, something in the way he avoided my gaze, told me the truth I didn't want to face. Over the next few months, the cracks widened. There were late-night calls he took outside, quick excuses, and a faint perfume smell that wasn't mine lingering on his shirts. I noticed the way he guarded his phone now, how he'd flinch when I entered the room unexpectedly. Each day, the truth became harder to deny and harder to live with. But what hurt me most wasn't my own heartbreak. It was the thought of what this could do to Ethan. I grew up in a broken home. I remembered what it felt like to hear the arguments behind closed doors, to pretend I didn't notice when my parents stopped saying, "I love you." I had promised myself my child would never feel that same pain. But now I was watching history repeat itself. One night, after a bad dream, Ethan crawled into my bed. His small voice broke the silence. "Mom, are you and Dad mad at each other?" I felt my heart shatter. Children always notice more than we think. I pulled him close and whispered, "No matter what happens, sweetheart, you'll always be loved." And in that moment, I realized that whatever choices I made from then on, they had to be about him, not just about me. The breaking point came on Ethan's birthday. I remember that day vividly. I had planned everything perfectly. His favorite cake, blue balloons, a handful of his closest friends. I wanted him to feel surrounded by love, even if mine was crumbling inside. Daniel promised he'd be home early to help, but as the hours ticked by, his absence grew louder. The candles were already melting when he finally walked through the door. He mumbled an apology about being stuck at work, but then I saw it, a faint lipstick stain on his shirt collar. It was small, but it might as well have been a scream. Something inside me broke. That night, when Ethan was asleep, I confronted Daniel again. This time he didn't bother to lie. He admitted everything. That he had been seeing someone else for months. That he hadn't meant to hurt me. That he just needed something different. His words cut deeper than any knife could. I sat there in silence, feeling everything and nothing at the same time. In that moment, I realized the man sitting across from me wasn't the same man I had once fallen in love with. The days that followed were heavy. I cried until I had no tears left. I prayed, wrote in my journal, and tried to make sense of the pieces of my life that no longer fit together. Divorce felt like failure, but staying in a loveless, broken marriage felt like slow death. Eventually, I knew what I had to do. When I told Daniel I wanted a divorce, his face went pale. He begged me to reconsider, to work things out. But I wasn't doing this just for me. I was doing it for Ethan. I wanted him to grow up knowing that love should never come with betrayal or pain. The months that followed were some of the hardest of my life. There were endless court dates, painful conversations, and long nights when Ethan would ask, "Why can't Dad stay with us anymore?" I would hold him and tell him that sometimes people change, but love doesn't disappear. It just finds a different form. Slowly, we began to heal. Ethan and I built new traditions. Saturday morning pancakes, evening walks through the neighborhood, movie nights filled with laughter instead of silence. Our home began to feel peaceful again. Not perfect, but real. One evening as I was tucking him into bed, Ethan looked up at me with his big brown eyes and said, "Mom, you're the strongest person I know." Those words made my heart swell, because in that single sentence, I realized he didn't just see me as his mother. He saw me as someone who stood up when it mattered most. Daniel faded from our lives after that. He saw Ethan occasionally, but his priorities were elsewhere. I stopped holding on to anger. I let it go, because I realized that forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for me. In time, I went back to school, earned my degree, and found a career I truly loved. Life didn't look the way I once imagined it would, but it turned out to be something even more beautiful, honest, peaceful, and full of strength I never knew I had. Looking back now, I see that betrayal didn't destroy me. It transformed me. It gave me the chance to rebuild, to rediscover who I really was beneath the weight of heartbreak. The day I chose to walk away wasn't the day I lost everything. It was the day I found myself. And today, when I tell this story, I do it not with bitterness but with gratitude, because sometimes the hardest decisions, the ones that break us, are the very ones that make us whole again.